Okay, everyone. Welcome. It is coming up on 2 o'clock on the West Coast of the United States. Patrick Scott here for another YouTube Live on Friday. I love being able to do these when I'm in the office. It's been an exciting time here on the planet. Um, I just had some new photos done yesterday, and they look really good. I'll be sharing them. Like I haven't had professional photos done. Beth Overton says hello, and Joshua Hayduk says hello. I haven't had professional photos done for a long time. So if you see some of my social media and some of my like headshots, they're from like 2012. And so I was really happy. One of our students came from San Jose yesterday, and we spent the afternoon in nature and here at the clinic. And so I'm really excited about that. Today, I want to talk about, you know, and I'm deciding on how esoteric to get. I want to be really pragmatic with you today. It is difficult to stay happy. It's difficult to stay joyful. And even by saying that, it sounds like a limiting belief. Really, it sounds like, well, what's so hard about it? Just get over yourself. And the benefit of being my age and my generation that I've been on the planet, I've been in a body for a while, and so one of humans. I remember when I started practicing Buddhism, the goal of the Buddhist practice was to be happy. That was interesting. And then I remember interacting with some people from other faiths, and this isn't a religious talk necessarily, but I had mentioned to a friend who was Catholic. I said, "Well, isn't the goal of religion to help people be happy?" And he smiled and he shook his head. He said, "Well, actually, in our religion, our faith, no, our duty is to serve God, and that is what makes us happy, and that our happiness is secondary." And this isn't a tit for tat comparison about world religions, but if you look at the stressors, and again, I always compare to my mother. And as I do that, my mother had a hard life. My sister had a hard life. Humans have hard lives. I don't, and again, given our previous talks about enlightenment, spiritual growth, being on the path, we don't grow if it's easy, which is hard to take. It is hard to take. Aurelie says aloha. And I happen to know, I'm going to out you, I happen to know that Aurelie is on the road right now because she's coming to see me here at the clinic in a few minutes. So I don't know whether I hope she's driving safely. We're getting ready for our second weekend of Huna Level 1 tomorrow and Sunday. We have an eager group of students, and that's been fun. It's been fun to be able to offer these teachings online to get people started. And so that's really excited. But I digress. Happiness. Um, Empowerment, from a Huna perspective, is 100% your responsibility. So we know that. And somehow knowing it doesn't always help when, like I know I'm supposed to be happy, or I know I'm supposed to be responsible. I know I'm accountable for my life condition. I know I'm accountable. I want to talk today about some of the mechanisms and flavors of joy, the flavors of enlightenment, the flavors of kind of, if you were to look at what are some of the building blocks of your own satisfaction, contentment, enlightenment, joy, happiness, that kind of thing. There are, we're going to talk at first about a psychological way of looking at happiness, a psychological way of meeting your needs, of living congruently. In the Hawaiian tradition, we say pono. And then I want to end today with a more esoteric, a little bit more new age look at the nature of human life, life on the planet. Like why do we do this, and what's the point? You get a little bit about like what's the purpose of life anyway, which is always an interesting question. Or what's the meaning of life? You know. So I want to talk first about the nature of the human condition. Humans are not always content. And it would be said probably that those lifetimes that we have that are of ease, that are no challenge, maybe born. Now, again, I realize this sets myself up for all sorts of contention, but that the lives where there's no struggle, no challenge, lives of great wealth, lives of great royalty, great ease. And I've worked with people of all different socioeconomic backgrounds, and I think you've heard me say that I've worked with several billionaires, and they're not very happy. You know, they're not. In fact, the very small sample that I have worked with, they they struggle just like the rest of us. And again, the I think the application is that humans, on the one hand, we're all the same. We all go through our paces. We all have our challenges. We all learn. We all grow. We do it together. We do it in families. We do it alone. And that at the end of the day, it is a time to. And I'm looking at the chat. I'm gonna have to look down here. We have, and I don't know who that is. Calm Gallery. Calm Gallery. Hi, Kumu. And then, oh, Natasha Octavia is here. I have to like literally look because the writing is so small. But anyway, hello. So lovely to see you. Thank you for joining me. Anyway, this idea of happiness. Now, we also know that in the human condition, there are cycles and rhythms. And again, I have worked with hundreds of thousands of people over the years. No one is happy all the time. No one is sad all the time. No one is manic all the time. No one is anything all the time. And you've heard me say that you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. You don't like what's going on, tomorrow's another day. My mom used to say that. And there are coping mechanisms that it's really true. You know, if you don't like today's energy, you don't like today's configuration, you don't like what's going on today, you know, certainly shake it up, go to bed, wake up, it's a new day. And I don't mean to be flip about the trials and tribulations that humans go through. In the Huna tradition, we talk about cycles and rhythms. So we've talked to here repeatedly about my favorite thing is when I was doing the Alzheimer's evaluations for seniors, and we would test the mental status of elders, and we were evaluating for organic brain syndrome and Alzheimer's dementia, Lewy body dementia, things like that. We were doing a very specific psychiatric and psychological evaluation of these seniors to determine medications and whether they needed placement and things like that. One of the standard mental status questions is, who's the president of the United States? Now, some of you heard me say this, and it's just my favorite thing in the world. I have lived, I should count them up, but I think 12 presidents. I think I've been through since I was born when Eisenhower was president. Then it was Kennedy, and whatever, how many presidents we've had since then. My favorite response to that question by seniors has been, that idiot. Now, understand, meaning one of my questions in the psychiatric evaluations is, who's the current president of the United States? And when I would get that idiot, it wasn't a specific answer, and it didn't let me know that they were conscious, alert, and oriented, and that they knew exactly what date it was and what time it was, which was interesting. But so many of the seniors, when I was doing those exams for the last 25 years, would say, that idiot. And certainly, if you look at history, not everybody likes the president. You can count on half the people not liking the president, half the people liking the president, half the people not liking this and that, the other thing. I'm also noticing a pattern of snarky comments, and we talked about it today in group supervision, that, I post things online, and I'm doing more TikTok and more social media, and I find I ask the question again, of my generation, and I work with and teach young adults like 18 to 22, certainly, and I have graduate students from 22 to 30, and interns from 30 to 40, and fully licensed people from 40 and above. And I always just check myself, and I love that I get to work with all these different age groups, and I get to work with very small children and babies, and I love it. I just love understanding what life is like at the different points in the lifespan. I'm a student of human behavior. I will be for the rest of my life. I'm a student of a lot of things: student of yoga, student of Huna, student of Reiki, student of energy, student of religion, student of Buddhism, and so on. And I'm just an active learner. And so I love to hear from people of all ages, kind of, what's life like? What's it like? And I was asking the student group this morning about a couple of questions that I had. That I'm noticing some trends that are kind of disturbing to me. One of them is that it seems that in the comments of any post, and I know many of you that I'm looking here, Natasha and others, post a lot. I don't understand the snarky comments. My mom used to say, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. So I posted, and again, I'm probably overly sensitive, and you guys are going to coach me on. You're going to have to get right over it and not take it personally because that's what people do. They make snarky, nasty comments, and it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how you say it. That you can't please all the people all the time, which I know. So I posted a thing. Some of you have seen it, where I do a Hawaiian word of the day. I just say your Hawaiian word of the day is lokahi. It means blah blah blah, and I use the dictionary definition, I use the online definition, I use my lineages definition, and I give you different ways. Lokahi actually means unity or harmony or being together, being united, being like a team, that kind of thing. And somebody just uh, posted, it doesn't mean that. Okay. Now I'm really concrete, I'm really literal. Just to check myself, I looked it up. It means exactly what I said it was. My issue is, why would you need to say that? Why would you just need to lob a snarky comment? The other thing, and I do a lot of posting for things like Quora around my expertise around psychology and mental health, and I can't believe who people, they don't even actually. Now I know you're probably sitting there going, yeah, welcome to the world. Welcome to the club. It's kind of a revelation to me where somebody will ask my opinion. Hello, holistic therapist coach. And you understand, I don't know who you are necessarily. Some of you, because you have these cool names, I don't necessarily know who you are. If you'd like to tell me who you are, I'm happy to say hello to your real name. Um, and I'm just amazed at how they don't even read the answer. They don't even look at the answer. They're just, it's like their mission is to make a snarky comment, is to say nasty things, and that whole thing. And so who is it? Oh, Tiff is here. Hi, Tiff. Hi, oh, Candida Smith is here. Calm Gal Riri is here. I am Natasha Octavia is here. Rayleigh is here. Beth Overton is here. Joshua Hedrick's awesome. Okay. Anyway, and you've heard me talk about we have a new AIP newsletter coming on out sometime. I just approved the proof. And I wrote the article, the intro, the president's message for the AIP, Association of Integrative Psychology newsletter. And we forget that we are predisposed for negativity, and I've quoted the UCLA study that's been going on since the 60s, that children are, for every positive message a child hears, these are your kids, these are us, since the 60s, we hear 12 negative messages at home and 18 messages at school, which means that if you are a bit perfectionistic, or you only hear the negative, or you can go to the negative, or you're predisposed to be snarky or whatever, we come by that honestly. It's true that we come by this proclivity to see the glass as half full, to, and my point in all of this is that it requires rigor and discipline to stay positive. It requires a foundational daily practice. And, for those of you that work with me more closely, you know that I'm a big proponent in something. Do something a day. You don't have to do what I do, and you don't have to do, how I do it, but some daily attention to your life condition, to your mood, to your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health is really, really essential. And if people look at me and, look at my story and how I've overcome cancer and how I remain relatively positive, and I do my best to stay positive, it is through that regular daily practice. So let's get into it. First aspect I want to talk about are your values. Values are have several, and I'm not going to write anything down. There's a recording if you really want to. If you want to take notes, you can, but just listen. Values are those things that we hold dear. They are typically single words for things like integrity, success, respect, loyalty, love, family. And these are things that we, although we are influenced by our family of origin, our values are those things that we choose from alternatives we choose freely as adults. So let's say you were raised in a very orthodox religious household where you would pray at the table. And there's no judgment at all. This is just the way you were raised, was a very strict and orthodox religious environment. And then as a young adult, you individuate, you go to college, you start your own family, and you make a choice as to how you do faith, devotion, religion, spirituality, which may be different than your family origin. Now listen to my tone. I make no judgment. You as an adult get to decide how you do your values. Now, some of the greatest conflicts in the world are in families when the child doesn't do what the parents think they should do about around marriage or relationships, and so that's already some room for conflict. But you choose your values freely. You choose them from alternatives. Values must help and not hinder. They are positive statements, things like loyalty, integrity, accountability. Those positive words. They are publicly demonstrated. So, let's say you have a core value of honesty. You are honest 100% of the time, 24/7. You are not honest on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you like a rug all the other days, right? So honesty, these are publicly demonstrated, and they are demonstrated consistently. So stand by. I just got a text, and I am here at the clinic, so if there's some emergency, I need to know, but it's not. So your values form the foundation. Now listen carefully. That all you probably understand all of that. Some of the greatest feedback that we can get from others is that we are not behaving in a way that is congruent with our own values. Never mind their values. If and I use the story, I think in level one HUNA class, where I had a clinician intern come to me years ago when I was really in the throes of working too much and not taking care of myself, very overweight, not getting a lot of sleep, 24/7 kind of a thing. And she actually said to me, Dr. Scott, I thought I wanted to be a clinical leader. Some of you know the story. And she says, and you're tired all the time. And so I'm going to quit and I'm going to go back to the restaurant and be a hostess because if being a clinical leader, a clinical director, or a teacher of mental health things means I have to be you, you're tired all the time. And it was very sobering for me. And it was really kind of a punch between the eyes. I am still talking about it 15 years later because it was not. If I'm theoretically teaching others how to take care of themselves, I'm a proponent for mental health. I am teaching interns and residents and medical students and all sorts of different people how to be a good mental health provider. And one of my interns tells me that what I'm modeling is exactly the opposite of that, which you know the story. I ended up getting sick, getting cancer, having a head injury, and so on, near-death experiences. That was the very, very powerful feedback. So my point to you is, if you get feedback and it really upsets you because it's like they don't know who you are, let's say you have a core value of integrity, and you get accused of not having integrity. You have a core value of accountability. You get accused of being not accountable. That's some very powerful feedback. So I'd have you reflect on if you've gotten feedback from someone else that you trust, about your accountability. And I think that's what those snarky comments upset me so much is when I'm doing my best to offer some research and I've got it footnoted and all that kind of stuff. And then somebody says, well, it doesn't mean that, you're wrong. I get a little bit, weird about that. Now, the best feedback, not comfortable, is when you don't show up to yourself as living congruently with your own values, right? And so, again, around my whole health journey, I'm telling you guys to take care of yourself. I have to take care of myself. I'm telling you guys to meditate. I better meditate. I'm telling you guys to do whatever you need to do to be as good as you can be. If I'm going to be a teacher and a role model, I better show up like that. And I think some of the most painful feedback we give ourselves is when we look in the mirror and we have to tell the truth. We have to never mind, nobody else is around. Values are those things that you do when nobody's looking. These are the things that keep you up at night. They're also the things that most piss you off when you perceive they're violated, and they're also the things that people will get upset about, is usually a value thing. Lots of stories in cultures. I worked in South Central LA, and there was a big in certain cultures, there are certain norms, if you will. And in South Central LA, this is an old story, but it's from the 90s, where, and I don't know this, I'm not an expert, I'm just going to relay to you the story that there was a situation in a Korean grocery store in South Central. In that culture, a woman is not supposed to be and don't correct me if I'm wrong. This is the story from South Central LA, that there was some violence during that time. That there was Korean and African American, and the deal in the Korean culture is that a woman shouldn't be alone with another man that's not her husband. And there's a situation where the wife of the pair is running the cash register at the grocery store. African American male comes into the grocery store to buy something, and it's already kind of a violation because she's really technically not supposed to be alone with another man. This is something cultural. And the way the money goes is you don't touch another man or anybody really, and so that she puts the change on the counter on a little plate, and he wants it in his hand, and he's offended, thinking that she won't touch him because he's black, thinking she won't touch him because he's dirty. So he's off to the races, making up all sorts of negative stuff about her racism, and she's so uncomfortable because to touch another man, to put the change in his hand, is a violation of her marriage in her culture. And so it goes. And there have been wars, there are wars going on around these values based differences. And by the way, and I'll leave values and we'll move on to needs, everybody thinks they're right. Everybody believes that their way is the right way. Everybody believes that their way is the only way. Everybody believes that their way is the way that things should be done. I remember I was raised by a single parent in the 60s, and I remember one of my roommates once in Europe. he said, um, he said, "Well, where's the washing machine?" I said, "Oh, well, it's over here." He was in my apartment in Germany, and he was an American, and I was showing him around, and he says, "Well, you know that we you do laundry on Mondays, right?" And I said, "No, not necessarily." He goes, "Well, Monday is laundry day." I said, "Oh, is it?" Now, he was American and he was from Florida. And I said, "I'm unaware that laundry day is Monday, but okay, you certainly can use the washing machine on Mondays if you want." He goes, "No, that's when everyone knows that laundry day is Monday and that Monday is when." And he wasn't angry about it, but it was the way he was raised in his family that Mondays was the day you do laundry. Now, in my life right now, laundry day is any day I have enough clothes, and laundry is happens when I need to have clothes or when it's a weekend and I have time, right? And you'll have things that grow up in families that are cultural imperatives, that are societal things, that are norms that aren't, you know. And I think if you go back to your childhood, there may have been words, language in your family that we thought, like words for body parts, like private parts. You know, what's a TT and a tata and a pee and a poo poo and, you know, all those words. Well, you get to school, you think that everyone calls their thing a TT or a tata or a toto or a poo poo or a baba or whatever it is. And you're starting to use your language that you used as a baby and as a child in a larger group of people in elementary school or kindergarten, and they're looking, what is a tata? Well, you know what a tata is. No, I don't know what a tata is. Well, it's a tutu. No, it's a pee. No, it's a popo. No, it's a, you know, and that kind of thing. It shows that linguistically we have very, very differences. And if you're not careful and aware, you can think that the whole world believes that this thing is called a whatever like that. Okay. Biggest takeaway from values is, are you living congruently with your own values? If you have a value of integrity, are you living in integrity with yourself? Are you pono? If you have a core value of honesty, are you being honest? If you have a core value of loyalty, are you a loyal person? And look at that. You know, look at, are you living congruently with your values? Because the things that will piss you off the most and be most satisfying is the violation of those values. So if you are upset, if you get really upset about something really triggered, chances are a value is involved. And so take a look at that. Second category today, I want to talk about basic human needs. Now, there have been many theorists. So this is on the way to what does it take to be happy? What is it with what's going on in the world? What tools, what resources do we need to mobilize to assure that we are at least taking as much ownership as we can for our happiness? And I'm not going to talk about a lot of the HUNA tools and the NLP tools and things because you've had that talk. I want to talk about it in a very broad sense. If you are living congruently with your values and you are expressing your values equitably, then you're going to have a higher chance of greater satisfaction. Second arena is basic human needs. Now, over the years, psychologically, there have been many theorists that have talked about needs. Maslow talked about needs. Glasser talked about needs. Marshall Rosenberg talks about needs. and so on. And I'm gonna use this idea that needs are similar to values, but they're more visceral. And so if you have a feeling, a visceral feeling that something is not quite right, chances are that's a need. So you're in a situation that just doesn't feel good. It's not to the level of consciousness. It could be a feeling of anxiety or a feeling of foreboding, but it's a very visceral, it's not even to the place of emotion yet. Chances are you are not meeting your needs effectively. Now, that could be the precursor to frustration. It could be the precursor to an emotion. But even before it gets to the level of consciousness or awareness, you're feeling a little icky. And that icky is a technical term. Now, I'm going to use Dr. Glasser, William Glasser, as a theorist that we could talk about. Maslow was the theorist in the 19th century that talked about, or actually into the 20th century, it was 20th century, sorry. I think he was born in the 19th century, but it was into the 20th century. He talked about the pyramid, the hierarchy of needs. And he said that at the base of the pyramid was survival, basic human need of survival. Once you meet that, then you go up in a sequential order into things like relationship and family and freedom and fun and excellence and all sorts of things. At the pinnacle of that pyramid, according to Maslow, is this thing called self-actualization. And that just meant we would call that happiness, we would call that enlightenment. Now, most people don't know this, and it'll clue you into a thing if you're into psychology at all. He disavowed his own theory in a article in the Journal of the American Psychiatric Association, I think in 1984. And don't quote me on that, you could look it up, where he said that he used to think the needs were sequential and that it was like a rung of a ladder. You've got to meet survival. And then once you meet survival, you go to the next higher ordered need, and then the next one, the next one, the next one. And if you've met all of those basic needs for relationship and career and self-improvement and education and blah, 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 then you get to this pinnacle called self-actualization. And a lot of that in that time had to do with money, with abundance, with material things. And I'll never forget the line in this article that he just disavowed his own theory. He goes, I used to think that the needs were hierarchical, that they were sequential, and that you had to do one to the next. And he said, but I realized they are not, and that there is no guarantee. Money and wealth does not guarantee happiness. And he says, and I've been to, he was, I think, Austrian or Hungarian, I forget. Don't quote me on this, but you can look up Abraham Maslow, maybe German. He said, I've been to America. And America is a nation, this was 100 years ago, he was writing, saying, America has more wealth than the world has ever known, even more wealth than the pharaohs. And I've been to America, where people with all the wealth in the world are not happy. They're not. And he said, so I'm really changing my theory to say that certainly these things are helpful in meeting our needs, but that material things, wealth, money, ease, comfort, food, clean drinking water are not a guarantee of happiness, and that self-actualization or enlightenment has to do with meeting the needs in a kind of a holistic way. Now, William Glasser came by in the 20th century, in about 1977 or so, and he said that there are 5 basic needs. And he said there are 4 psychological needs and 1 survival need. So he said the no-brainer is if you're not alive, your psychological needs don't matter. Now, I saw this in the ER when I was working with patients, and if they were their life was threatened, they were had been in a bad car accident, they were having a hard time physically, then the psychological needs didn't matter. They were not concerned about even eating. They were not concerned about their family. They were not concerned about their well-being. They were not concerned about their car. They were not concerned. And I had a woman come to me once complaining about her medical record, and I was fielding those complaints, and I had written in her chart. And she brought her chart from medical records and said, there's some mistakes in here, and I'd like to go over with them with you because there's mistakes on my bill. And I said, absolutely, ma'am, what can I do you? She says, well, I was in a car accident a few weeks ago, and I've gotten my record, and it says here that I went to CT scan, and I'm claustrophobic, and there is no way I would have ever allowed anyone to put me into a CT scanner or an MRI or a PET scanner. And it says here in your note by Patrick Scott, patient was in full C-sign precaution and went to CT. And it says that you walked the gurney to CT with the radiology tech. And I said, well, I actually remember that. I remember you, and I remember me writing this note. And she said, well, I never would have permitted. And it also said that I was conscious, alert, and oriented, and that I knew where I was and who I was. But I don't have any memory of that. And so I think this is a mistake. I think you charted on the wrong patient, or that you made a mistake. Now, what was going on there was because she was in a bad car accident. She was on a backboard. She had a neck brace. She was, and I was, as the social worker, that was my job at the time, I was walking with her to reassure her that she was going to be awake, okay, and she was awake. Her eyes were open. She was talking, but understand the nature of the human consciousness, that our unconscious mind will protect us. And so she had what's called retrograde amnesia. She didn't remember any of that. The point with Glasser is that when our physical needs are not being met, the psychological needs go out the window. So survival is, heads up, we had our first clinic downtown at the Housing Authority, and we could not give this stuff away. And we would go door to door with students, and we would try to recruit for people to get, we had all sorts of services, Dress for Success and resume writing and computer literacy and literacy in English as a second language, and on and on and on. And we were trying to mobilize, at that time, 16,000 housing authority residents to get off of welfare, get out of Section 8, get out of the projects, and have at it. And time again, we would talk to residents, and they would be very, very gracious. Would invite us in. They'd say, "Look, of course I'm depressed. I need a job. I need a check. I need food. I need alcohol. I need marijuana. I need drugs. If you're here to give me a check, I will thank you and take it. If you're here to give me cash, I will take it. But I'm not going to go get counseling because I'm really, I'm depressed. I need basic things." And so understand, for those of you clinicians, and I'm just going to look down here, great idea, should have designated laundry day. Areli says, Riley and I were just talking about needs, values, and relationships that we like and value. So I heard you, and I'm doing needs and values today. When you're not meeting your basic needs, that's why homeless mentally ill, and we work with homeless down at a care complex here in Las Vegas. They're struggling for survival every day. To say that they're going to get into insight-oriented psychotherapy and talk about their mother and talk about their navel is pretty ridiculous. We're offering concrete services. They need a job. They need a shower. They need clothes. They need food. They're not interested, and so in many parts of the world, the United States is looked at kind of ridiculous, like we are so ridiculous. In many places in the world, and I'm working with many of those places, counseling, therapy, self-improvement, all the stuff that we have the luxury of looking at aren't even on the table. How am I going to eat? How am I going to feed my family? How am I going to make do and survive? And so we have the luxury in this country of meeting our basic survival needs. And Glasser says there are 4 psychological needs. They are love and belonging, freedom, power, and fun. I'll do them in order. Love and belonging is the need for relationship. Now, even if you are, and what he says is that even if you are introverted, you don't really like people, you're rather socially isolated, every human on some spectrum has a need for interaction with other humans. And that's been proven scientifically. And so no matter how isolative you are, how phobic you are of other people, that some of the time we need to know, by virtue of another person, that we matter, that we make a difference, and that we want to be in relationship with another person. Since Riley and Aurelia are talking about needs in relationships, a great book that I love, and it's a very popular book now, is called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And that talks about, and I do a lot of couples counseling. It's a really good book that talks about what do couples need in relationship. What do you need in a partner? Any book by John Gottman is good, Gottman, around the relationship, couples kind of thing. And that's not for this talk today. Talking at a much more granular level around just basic needs. And so we have a need to interact with other humans, and some people have a great need. They're very gregarious. They love lots of people. They're very extroverted. They recharge in groups. Other people are more introverted. Now listen carefully. There is no judgment how you do it. You can be very introverted. I always say to people in mental health evaluations, has your socialization changed lately? Meaning, did you used to be more social? Did you go out more? Did you have more friends? And that you've come kind of isolated lately by virtue of a trauma or PTSD or some depression or anxiety. If there's a change, if they would say something like, I'm actually an extrovert, but I've been so depressed lately that I just can't bring myself to get dressed, or I just can't bring myself to go out or go out with my friends. I've alienated my friends, that kind of thing. So what we look at is not a judgment around whether you're introverted or extroverted. It's a matter of has what your typical is your MO changed? Are you now all of a sudden very isolative and hiding and barricading, under the covers because life has gotten too difficult, and that we would treat that. But please hear that there's no judgment how you do it. Your job is to take responsibility for being happy. So that's love and belonging. Need number two is freedom. Now, while we need other people from time to time, the freedom need means we need to get away from those people from time to time. Synonyms for love and or for freedom are autonomy, solitude, space, creativity, independence, things like that. And so you will feel the need to be with people, and then sometimes you will feel the need to not be with people. As I've gotten older and I work with people all day long, I talk to the groups, I'm spending more time alone, and I really enjoy my quiet time. I enjoy my private time. I love you all, and the same time, I love my quiet time and my peace and my peace and quiet. Um, Invariably, I do a lot of traveling, and people always ask me to stay in their homes. And I've made it a rule the last 20 years or so, I don't stay in people's homes professionally. I mean, if I'm on the road for a class, or I'm doing a talk, or I'm teaching, I stay in a hotel, even at my own expense, because I want that privacy. I want that solitude. I want that space. And I'm finding that given just what's going on in the world, I find that my retreat, my sanctuary. And so please hear that however you do it is fine, but you should at least know how you do it. Are you the joiner, the group person, the person that wants to be with the people a lot, or are you the more private person? And you get to have that, and then having those boundaries will help you. So it's sometimes it's trial and error. If you were raised in a large family, you're surrounded by people all the time, maybe it's time to get away from them, and you don't need to be attending to everyone's needs all the time. So that's the need for freedom. Now, freedom also of thought, freedom in terms of creativity, that you do it your way. You know, um, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who are asking me, I want to be a coach, I want to be a therapist, I want to have my own business. Now, I have two businesses that I run and own and operate, and I'm at this point in my life, I have the fortune of having been all of the jobs. I've been the employee, I've been the W-2 employee, I've been the sole proprietor, I've been the silent partner, the general partner, the limited partner, the loud partner. I've been the S1 S corporation, the LLC. I've also been an employee, a part-time employee, and so on, and subcontractor, 1099. And each role has with it challenges. And I would say to you that, and I mean that sincerely. I run two very different businesses, and I wouldn't have it any other way because I get to do what I want to do. You know. Now, I enjoyed when I worked at the hospital just having a job and getting a regular paycheck. That was so freeing. And so as you look at your career where you are, look at your need for freedom, your need for independence and autonomy. There are people who cannot be told what to do. They can't be. So I wouldn't recommend a job where you're told what to do. Start your own business, do something that you're doing on your own. And that's hard. It's hard any way you go. So that's the need for freedom. Number three, the need for power. Now listen carefully. Glasser coined the term for power to be like electrical power, meaning that we have in us a need to make a difference, to matter, to do something that someone else thinks is important. And that can be for recognition, acknowledgement, influence, success, being good at something, mastery, competence, being a virtuoso at something. If you have a craft and you're good at it and you like the feedback and you like the adoration and you like the praise, I think most humans like to do a good job. I think and hear me, I work with the most dysfunctional and mentally ill people in the world, and I still believe in the humans by and large are good. I'm sorry, I do. And I know I work with crazy people, and I know I work with criminals, and I work with court ordered people, and I still have a fundamental belief that humans are fundamentally good. and that people, if given the chance, want to do a good job and they want to be recognized for what they do. And so if you're working with someone that has a high need for power, it's not about power over others, although in a narcissistic sense, you'll see people that use their power need as a dictator or power over a dominion over. Glasser's speaking about power very neutrally. That's the need to make a difference, the need to make a contribution, the need to give back, the need to know that you mattered to someone or something else. And so if you give to charity, you feel good about that, that's your need for power. If you love to be on stage and to do a good job as a performer, and you love that, that's your need for power. If you love to be masterful and competent at your craft, that's your need for power. And it is it's a very important need. All humans have it. The kid, and we see these needs manifest in very early childhood, where the kid, well, let's run through it. The last need is fun, and I'm going to get to fun in a minute, but the child who needs you to watch them dive, the kid that needs to put their finger paints on the refrigerator, the kid that needs recognition and to be noticed and to be complimented and to be given feedback all the time, that's a strong power need. The kid that does it my way, I do it, mommy. No, let me do it. Let me do it. I do it my way. That's the need for freedom. Let me help. I want to help. What can I do to help? That's the need for love and belonging. Now, the kid in the nursery, newborn, that is giggling and throwing the beanie off and having the party in the neonatal intensive care unit, that's the need for fun. So Glasser says that the Josh Wade says, I need to be noticed and noticed me. Yes, I see you. I see you. Riley Burris says, you hear everything, Kumu. I do. Anyway, so we all have a need for fun. Now, what Glasser says is that we can be really dutiful in our career, have a strong need for power. We can have great relationships and meet our needs for love and belonging. We can have autonomy and independence and creativity and meet our needs for freedom. And that sometimes we need to have fun. And that shows up as humor, joking, silliness, irreverence. And if you know me, I have a very irreverent sense of humor that is lost on most people these days. I'm kind of upset about it because I tell jokes and they just fall flat. I think I'm hilarious, but my cohorts of students now don't understand my humor. So I'm and then the funny part about that is if I don't break it up, with some humor, they think I'm so serious, and then they think they're in trouble. Because remember, wherever I go, I'm in charge. I'm running the show. And so I try to have some levity. And I think I told you, there's some clinicians on here. You're going to love this. So I have graduate students. I have interns in the behavioral sciences. I have medical students. I have all sorts of different people here studying at Heads Up. So we talk about cases. And a few months ago, they were just presenting a case to me. So they have a patient that they're seeing that has a clinical picture, some stuff going on, and they'll present it in the group to get feedback about how to treat this particular disorder. And so they were describing a person, and it was a female in her 40s, and it was a complex clinical picture. I'm not going to go into the details. They're not important. But I just said, with a smile on my face, sounds like she needs slap therapy. I will say that again. I don't know. Sounds like she needs slap therapy. And they get serious and they take their pens and they look down, they start writing. Yes. How do you spell that? SLAP. And I realized they thought I was serious. So they're writing, and they all have their computers now these days. So every single moment there is a computer in front of them and they have their phones. So they're starting to look up slap therapy like it's a real thing. And I thought, stop it. Stop right now. Put your pencils down. Do you think slap therapy is a real thing? Well, you're saying it. It must be a real thing. It's like, oh no, it's a joke. Please lighten up. And I realize in my position, they think that every word out of my mouth is the gospel and they've got to take notes. And I don't know. It's not a real thing. But we could make it a real thing. I have an idea. Now, this is humor, and you're going to laugh. And if you don't laugh, you fail this YouTube Live. 2 levels of slap therapy. The first level, and it's important when you're doing slap therapy that you don't actually harm anyone, because that's a felony. So you'll go to jail, so you don't want to do that. So you don't leave any marks. So the first level is snap out of it. right? Snap out of it. There's an old show called Bob Newhart, and he played a psychologist. And one of the funny things that he would do in session as a psychologist, this was a comedy. It was a sitcom. Bob Newhart was a comedian, and he would just, whenever somebody would start some diatribe, he'd go, stop it right now, just snap out of it, stop it. And he would yell at them, and it was just hilarious when a psychologist would do that, right, in session. So first level of slap therapy, snap out of it. And then if you get to level 2 of needing slap therapy, you're going to all know this: shut the fuck up. It's actually 1, 2, 3. Shut the fuck up. And you know that I have a class called STFU, and I think it's funny, and I'm hoping you're laughing. And if you're not laughing, you can leave a snarky comment about how ridiculous slap therapy is and that it's not a real thing. And at least somebody's laughing their ass off. I'm so glad. All right. So the fun aspect. Now what he says about all these 4 needs. Remember, now we have love and belonging, freedom, power, and fun. And he said that all humans have all of these needs. What's different from human to human is the relative strength. Joshua may have a very strong need for power. He needs recognition and acknowledgement. Somebody else on this YouTube Live may have a stronger need for freedom. You just know that you need to do it your way, that you got to make it your own. You need independence, autonomy, creativity. You got to make it up as you go along. Totally fine. The next person may have a need for love and belonging. That they just need to have the collaboration, the cooperation, the camaraderie, the group kinds of a thing. And finally, somebody else is all about the party. And that's totally okay. You get to do it however you do it. Responsibility against this model is defined as learning to choose behaviors that meet our needs, but does not prevent someone else from meeting theirs. And I'll say that again. Responsibility, according to Glasser, in this model means learning to choose behaviors that meet our needs, but don't deprive someone else of the ability to do the same. So and I've had to learn over the years that I can't be all things to all people. I can't. I've set limits and boundaries with my family around money and with and I've made. And at my age now, I'm pretty good in terms that I'm pretty clear about my boundaries. I'm pretty clear about what I'll tolerate. And Aurelia has a couple of people that could use slap theory, and you can use it. Don't credit me because I'll go to jail. But I just think it's fun. And so take a look at your needs. Now, the evidence you're not meeting your needs is frustration, is that visceral. So the values, if you get feedback that you think you're full of integrity, and someone says, sweetheart, you lack integrity. Oh, it's hard to hear that, but you want to take a look at that. You want to consider the source, certainly, but you want to look at, okay, what am I doing? What am I demonstrating that lacks integrity? Certainly, number one. And then if you look in the mirror and you don't like how you are in the world, like there have been times when I've lost my temper. I am not proud of it. I will do my best to clean it up, ask for forgiveness. And, we're human, man. We all have times where we look in the mirror and we don't like what we see. We look in the mirror. When I was 350 pounds recently, and I'm preaching health and wellness, I don't know. I'm preaching health and wellness and I almost kill myself by running myself into the ground. I don't know. Not so great as a role model for health and wellness, right? And I get the feedback from one of my interns that she's quitting the profession of social work because what I'm modeling looks like burnout. So I'm here to tell you, I have had my moments of self-reflection going, yeah, I don't like what I see and I'm not happy with how I am doing my life. And so that's for you, and that's a private conversation. You can do it in therapy, but take a look. So that's a values-based conversation. The needs usually are more visceral. He says that all behavior is purposeful. Everything you do, and certainly in our study of the unconscious mind and neurolinguistic programming, we understand that the unconscious mind really kind of drives our behavior. And so I'll give you some concrete examples so you understand that it can be super granular. If you're the foot, and I want to do it on my thing. If you're the foot tapper or the agitated person that's always got to move, Glasser would say that that's an attempt to meet your needs. I know that my partner Rick does not like sitting in classes. He did level 1 Huna in Kona a number of years ago, and the 8 hours a day in the classroom just nearly drove him nuts. He's just not wired that way. He cannot sit. Even though there's breaks every 90 minutes, it's just like he was like, I love the content, I love the people, I loved hula, I loved everything about Huna, but I'm not a classroom sitter. In fact, I'm going to say when I met him, now please listen. I could be super judgmental, like, well, what's wrong with you? Why, I love Huna and how can you not also love it? And my God, what a betrayal. No, he's wired differently than I am. Thank God. Thank God we're together. And thank God he's wired differently than I am. It'd be kind of boring if we were wired the same way. But I remember I love movies. I love theater. I love musicals. I love going to museums. I love orchestra concerts. I love all different kinds of musical venues. And invariably, when Rick and I got together 26 years ago, May 15th, it's May 1st today, the 26th anniversary of our first date is in 15 days from today. Um, I learned that he wasn't wired that way, that he would tolerate it for me. I mean, he'd go to a movie with me. He would go to a play, but it was hard for him to sit in the seat. He would get up a lot, go to the bathroom a lot. And that's just the way he's wired. There is nothing wrong with him. There's nothing wrong with me. You guys get to do it how you do it. Part of the Glasser says around the responsibility is negotiating, saying, look, I'm the kind of person who really likes to be with a lot of people. I like to be out. I like to have a lot of noise around me. Okay, great. I'm not that kind of a person. I need space and solitude, and I need quiet, and I need, what I need. And so if you look at the love languages of Gary Chapman, I'm going to go through those before we conclude today. If you're in, and so the overarching message for the talk is you, only you, and this is not even bad news. This is just the news. Only you can be in charge of your happiness. LOL, I'm tapping my feet now. Natasha trying to finish emails and tuning in here. Now, see, Natasha, as I've come to know her, she's an inveterate multitasker. She can knit a sweater with one hand. She can juggle balls with the other. She can do a Cirque du Soleil routine with her feet while she's checking emails, paying attention to this YouTube live, and negotiating real estate deals on the side. And that her head is also probably doing a Rubik's Cube. I am not wired that way. And I don't judge. I wish I was. I wish I could do more than one thing. I can't. Natasha is excellent. And so she gets to do that. And however you do it is fine. And it's awesome. I have a little bit of a FOMO. I wish I was a better multitasker. I'm not a good multitasker. I tell the truth about it, right? So the overarching message here is it's just built in. I don't want to say like it's like I'm telling you need to be responsible. No one else can meet your needs for you. You can have need satisfying relationships. You can have a need satisfying job. You can have a need satisfying career and need satisfying activities, but those are your choice. So the 1996 book that Dr. Glasser wrote is called Choice Theory. And it's an older book now, but he talks about, unfortunately, as much as we love each other and as much as we want to support each other, only we can meet our needs. Now, we meet our needs in the context of these relationships. Now, 5 love languages, according to Gary Chapman. He says in the context of a romantic relationship, a spousal relationship, a thing like that, that there are some 5 different needs that show up in those relationships. The first one is acts of service, that some people really demonstrate their love through acts of service, doing things. Rick is like that for me. He does things for me and he loves doing things for me. And I happen to love that he does things for me. We just moved into a new townhouse in Minnesota. I have not been there for 2 weeks. I will not be there for another week. When I show up, listen, and as they say, read it and weep. I do all the computer stuff. I do all the money stuff. I do all the leases and all the anything to do with the computer. When I show up to the new home, May 9th, it will be set up. I will not lift a box. I will not lift a piece of furniture. He has the movers. He has the truck. He has the people. He's going to handle it. And by the time I show up there, I will be going back to a new home in Minnesota. Now, you may say, well, gee, you lazy piece of blah, blah, blah. That's how we do it. He loves acts of service. I also like acts of service. I like doing things for people. I like helping people. And so acts of service can be a wonderful way for us to meet our needs in a relationship. Second one, words of affirmation. Some people in relationship need to be told that you love them. They need to be told they're doing a good job. They need to be told that they're pretty. They need to be told that they don't look fat in those pants. It's a dicey one. They need to be told. And if you know that you're the kind of person in a relationship that needs words of affirmation, words of encouragement, words of support, you got to let your partner know, because they won't know unless they're psychic, right? Number three, quality time. Sometimes your partner needs you to just be with them, period. Quality time. Now, Natasha Octavia, not on your phone, not on your computer. I don't know your situation, but again, I have been accused of, we have these devices here. I have had more than one family member tell me, get off your phone. I need to, I want you here. I don't want you on your phone. And I've listened to that, right? One of my clients right now works at an organization I consult for. They call it cell phone jail. When he gets home from work, his kids, they have a box. It's like a box that they've made or they got somewhere. It's got a glass. It reminds me of a fire extinguisher holder, and that daddy must put his phone in cell phone jail when he gets home so that he can spend time with the kids and the family, which I think is brilliant. And he dutifully turns his phone off, puts it in cell phone jail. It goes to jail. And for X amount of time, he is spending quality time with his family. And that's been a really, really a great boon to the relationship with the family. Number 4 is physical touch and bonding. Some people are very touchy and cuddly. Some people are not. And if your spouse or your partner is a touchy-feely, cuddly, and I'm not talking sex. Sex could be physical touch and bonding. It is. But there are those that are very affectionate. They want the hugs. Your kids may want hugs. Your spouse may want hugs and cuddling and on the couch, Netflix and chill with the blanket and the popcorn and the whole thing. And if you have a partner that is very cuddly, that is absolutely okay. And they get to have that. And then you get to negotiate what you want also. And I have forgotten the 5th one, but let me find it. And then the 5th one, number 5, is gifts. I have a friend who likes gifts. She is married to a man who does, now this is history now, did not, before going to counseling, didn't believe in birthdays, Christmas, celebrations at all. There was never a gift anyone. No one ever got a gift. He just didn't believe in them. He just was like, you know what? Your gift is my presence in your life every day. Get over. He had married and had 2 kids, family that I know, that I'm friends with. And he was just like, and it kind of came to a head and they went to counseling. And she said, I need a gift. I need you to get me flowers. I need you to get me flowers like once a year. Well, when would you like it? And they negotiated what kind of flowers, exactly when. It wasn't very romantic, but she needed a gift every once in a while for her to feel valued in the relationship. It wasn't a big deal to him. It certainly had nothing to do with money. And he sucked it up and got her flowers. And now, 20 years later, they're doing great because he knows that's how she meets her needs in the relationship, that she needs flowers, whatever, a diamond, whatever it is. Now, you get to decide what your needs in relationship are. I'm going to run through them again, and then we'll call it a day. Acts of service, doing things for others. Gifts, giving things. Quality time, spending time with them. Physical touch and bonding, meaning the physical touch and bonding, right? And finally, words of affirmation. And I'd have you, as a result of listening to this or watching this, is just to figure out what your needs are. How are you wired? Have a conversation with your partner or spouse about how they're wired. If you want to get the book, it's called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, or Choice Theory by William Glasser, 1996, or anything by Abraham Maslow, or Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Those are all really, really good books. Or anything by John Gottman around couples, Gottman. Okay, that is enough for today. Wow, I was long-winded today. So I wish you the best. Have a great week, and we will talk soon.